Greetings! Welcome to our show, Ghosts Are Near, where we discuss various aspects of paranormal phenomenon. My name is Keith Johnson, your host. With me is my lovely co-host, Sandra.
Hello, again.
Sandra also happens to be my lovely wife and is the co-founder of New England Anomalies Research, of which I am the founder. With me also is my brother, Carl. How are you today, Carl?
I'm well. I'm not so lovely, but I'm well.
Oh, it's good. You had a hectic day today, are you?
Ah, yes. It's winding down now, though.
Well, that's good. Let's wind down and talk about some genuine paranormal phenomena, or at least what we may consider to be genuine paranormal phenomena. On the subject of reincarnation, K.D. Lang. You're a fan of K.D. Lang, aren't you, Carl?
Oh, I'm familiar with her music,
country
yes.
Western singer?
I enjoy
Yes,
her music.
This is from a well-known publication that deals with paranormal aspects and very mysterious things. It's a very, very well-known publication, nationally distributed. But singing sensation K.D. Lang's first claim to fame was that she was the reincarnation of Patsy Cline. Patsy Cline had passed away years before she was born, yet the bond was real and strong for K.D. "I think I am the reincarnation of Patsy Cline," she declared in 1987. "You may think she died in a car crash in 1963, but she's living right here in my merry body, I tell you."
Well, actually, Kathy Dawn is a little incorrect in that.
Patsy actually died in a plane crash.
Yes.
So
Other
makes
than
it
that,
interesting. But
I don't know if that's a misquote from KD or not, but apparently she's convinced that she's a reincarnation of Patsy Cline. How do you feel about that, Keith?
Well,
If you have an opinion on it.
I know that Anthony Quinn, film star Anthony Quinn, believed that the spirit of Paul Gauguin was kind of inspiring him. He was a very, very accomplished artist and a part-time resident of Rhode Island. And didn't he believe that Paul Gauguin was very much influencing him?
I think he
Not that he
believed
was
that-
reincarnated, but that he was influencing
That
him.
he was channeling, to a degree, the spirit of Paul Gauguin.
Yeah.
And of course, Shirley MacLaine is a big believer and proponent of reincarnation.
Yes. Yeah, she's taken a lot of flack for that, too.
Yes, and different mystical beliefs.
Yeah. Interesting topic. But we're also going to talk a little bit about EVPs today, electronic voice phenomena. Now, we have some examples of what we believe are spirit voices. And we have a whole collection of them, actually. We've been collecting them for a while. And that's part of what we do in New England Anomalies Research. Often when we're on a allegedly haunted location, we will have audio tape going, and very often, actually, we will pick up what seems to be a spirit voice, or at least voices that weren't apparent while we were doing the recording. Usually it's only when you play these back that you hear that a voice actually came out. Now, of course, as Carl mentions, they're very easy to fake something like this. Wouldn't you say, Carl?
Well, that's the nature of paranormal phenomena in general. It's very easy to contrive. It's easier to produce or reproduce than stage magic. You really don't need props or any sophisticated equipment to do so. I mean, a spirit voice can be replicated by somebody whispering into a tape recorder. You have to be there or know the people that are presenting this phenomenon to you, this evidence, to accept that it's genuine.
Right.
But that is a common phenomenon that will manifest in paranormal investigation, or common as such phenomena gets, that a voice will sometimes manifest on audio recording equipment, a voice that we didn't hear at the time or maybe didn't hear at the time. Sometimes we'll hear it and it will be picked up on the recorder.
Yes, and more rarely you'll get it on video and audio at the same time, which we did on an investigation with the Atlantic Paranormal Society at one time. Andrew Graham and I previously were discussing that. We actually had a camera upstairs. One of our members had a camera upstairs. His video camera was going a night shot, and it actually picked up a voice.
Even more unusual is when two different recorders pick up an audio.
Yeah.
You know, they'll pick up this alleged voice.
Well, that helps for verification. Also helps to have somebody with you at all times. That way it's not just you experiencing it, it's somebody else experiencing it. So that provides validation for it.
Because most often one tape recorder will pick it up and the other one won't.
Yes.
But sometimes
I
they
was just
both
going to
do.
say that is most often the case, where you'll have just one recorder in a room where there is an EVP session going on, maybe 4 or 5 people around a table, and only one of the recorders will actually pick up the EVP.
Right. Well, Sandra, what would you recommend is best as far as equipment goes for picking up EVPs?
Well, I think you would agree we've had the most luck with analog recorders,
Yes, we
magnetic
have.
tape, as opposed to digital
Yeah.
recorders.
Some people seem to record just fine with digital, but you and I have had the most luck with analog, and Carl has too.
Yes.
That's true, and I'm not sure if that's because of the fact that it's easier for the entities to imprint what they're going to say onto the magnetic tape, if that's what they're doing, and it's a little bit more difficult to do that with a digital recorder.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's one theory.
Right. We also recommend an external mic that will tend to cut down on gear noise from within the
With
tape recorder
analog
itself.
recorders, yes.
Yes, exactly. Well, we have some examples with us. Very rarely you will actually hear the voice while you're recording it. Most of the time, as I explained, you will only hear it after you have done your recording and you're playing it back. There are exceptions to that, though, and we'll play you some of them too. But first, I think we'll start with one. Let's start with a simple one. What do you got there?
Simple one. Well,
If any of them can be called simple, but
well, we were just talking about an EVP session. You've got a bunch of people, investigators, around a table, asking questions, recorders going.
and what do we recommend not to do while making a recording?
No whispering.
No whispering, right?
EVPs themselves sound like whispering, and it's very difficult when you're analyzing your recordings to go back and tease apart whispering of humans or investigators or clients and the whispering of an actual spirit voice.
Which is rather difficult because you're in a room and people will tend to whisper to each other. You're waiting for something to happen, and what's going to happen? What was that? You know, and of course, you know, it's just a natural tendency to do that. So.
And it can be very disappointing after maybe 5 or 6 hours of listening over and over again to a tape recording to determine, oh, that's one of the investigators. I know that voice, you know.
Yeah.
When you hear this whispering, you're trying to isolate it, and it says, you know, bathroom break or something. You know,
Yeah. Well, one time,
or I'm thirsty.
yeah, a good friend Brian in Taps, we were in a house and he had tripped over some debris, and he says, "Oh, please forgive me." Next week he's come, "I got this great EVP. It says, please forgive me."
So he was analyzing his own voice. on
Yeah,
the
I
tape,
mean, but it does happen. It is easy to do. So if you're not really paying attention.
Yeah, that sounds like a characteristic Brian.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's a
incident, yeah.
Brianism
Bit of
for
a-
sure.
That's a
Yeah, right.
Brianism.
Brian memory lapse there.
Yeah, but it does happen. It does happen.
Not that he hasn't had his shining moments. He certainly has. But
Yes.
that
But,
wasn't one of them.
Getting back to what I was saying, the EVP that I was going to play is one where we were doing an EVP session around a table with, it was myself and Keith and 2 investigators from New England Paranormal. I had asked a question, and it turns out that I was the only one that got an answer. The other 3 investigators sitting at the table, when they went back and analyzed their recordings, they didn't get anything. But let me just go ahead and play this. I wanted to know how long this entity had been in the house. This is from Newport, Rhode Island.
How long have you been here?
All right, let's make that a little bit louder.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been here?
Okay, I don't know if that came through.
I could hear it from here, but
Right, I could hear it.
our audience
clearly.
could
Yeah.
decipher that. I don't know.
Well, I had asked how long had the entity been there. It answered in a male voice. It said October. And the interesting thing about that is the activity in this particular client's home had started in October. There were screams heard by workmen who were doing renovations on the house in a room where a woman had been injured. There was a fire, and as I said, the activity that had been happening in this client's home started in October, so I thought that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. What do you have next?
Let's see. How about precious blood?
Precious blood? Well, this is quite an impressive EVP, I consider it to be.
Would you consider that in a Class A EVP or Class B? We classify these as A, B, and C, A being the clearest. B, you might have to play it a few times to recognize what's being said. C, it really takes some listening to.
Right.
And generally with an EVP incident, you'll be playing it a few times before you're really certain that it's genuine, that it sounds like a voice.
Right.
So
once in a while you're lucky enough to get a Class A EVP where it just simply jumps at you and there's no denying it. And I think this is one of those. This is in Precious Blood Cemetery, Woonsocket, Rhode Island. We're there with a group, and it was a very, very frigid, cold night. We tried not to stay there too long, but one of our investigators happened to ask, "Are you walking through the graveyard?" And this is what came out.
That was pretty clear.
Yes, that indeed was pretty clear. Would you play it again, please? I'd say that was impressive. I like that one.
well, it sounds like a
Answered his question.
female child voice.
Yeah, it does, but it has kind of almost a sarcastic quality to it, which I find that a lot. You get this sarcastic quality to it.
Sounds like Gollum.
Yeah, it does sound
Lord
like
of the
it.
Rings.
Yeah.
Well, I know there has been some activity in that cemetery that you might call ritualistic, that may have brought some of the phenomena that we experienced in that cemetery. May have
Yes.
drawn it.
Yes, we came across what appeared to be an animal sacrifice, a cat there, unfortunately.
The year before,
Yeah.
actually.
Mm-hmm. Very, very unfortunate, but negative activity does tend to draw in negative spirits, so.
That's right.
Also interesting about this cemetery, Rose Ferrin, a saint, a stigmatist, is actually buried there. Died in the 1930s. So. Shall we go to some from Kristen's apartment?
Oh, sure.
Our friend who happens to be a ghost magnet, meaning she tends to attract these things to her.
All
Through no
right.
fault of her own, but just some people, for whatever reason, have this particular sensitivity where spirit activity is attracted to them. And so we've done some blessings in various apartments that she's lived in, she moved in. And every time she moves, she seems to need a new blessing. But this is one of our blessings at her house there. Which one is this now?
Want out?
Yes. Okay. Tape recorder was left in the bedroom, and a voice seems to say, "Want out." Mm-hmm.
The other interesting thing is we'll probably have done another blessing on her newest apartment by the time this show airs.
Yes. Well, probably we'll have more evidence too. We always come away with evidence from wherever Kristen is
That we
living.
do.
That's all.
All right. How about the scream?
All right. Now this is one that it's rare in that you could actually hear the voice while we were recording. It was during a blessing, and I was doing provocation. I was doing an expulsion actually, and you hear my voice speaking, but also everybody jumped back at this moment because we did hear the scream out of thin air while it was going on. We're right outside the front door. So would you play that now, please? could use that on a hot night like this. Yes, yes, but
Point.
yes, I heard that while it was taking place. Brian heard it. Kristen heard it. A few other investigators with us did actually hear that while it was going on. So we have another example of that, which took place in Jamestown. This was last summer actually, where we were doing a blessing in a house in Jamestown. Now, this didn't come out as clear as we would have liked because, Sandra, would you describe exactly what you heard? Because I heard the same thing at the same time.
Well, I was assisting Keith with the blessing on this home in Jamestown. And we were just about to move from one room to another. We're in the living room. We're moving into the dining room. Keith and two other investigators had already moved into the dining room, and I was still in the living room, and I heard this woman scream, and I was able to orient my head, and I could hear where this scream was coming from, near the ceiling, near the corner, and it was very clear. And I thought to myself, this is going to be a great EVP. This is going to be really clear, and this is a keeper. Well, when we got back to analyze the EVP, it sounded more like a whistle, unfortunately. I was a little disappointed, but we managed to amplify it and clean it up a little bit so that it sounds a little bit more like a woman screaming again and less like a whistle, but it's not what we thought we were going to have. Or not.
I'd also like to mention something about white noise. We tend not to recommend using white noise because you're only going to have to clean the tape up anyway, and you're going to have to try to take that out. So we get asked that a lot.
White noise is a subtle background noise that's generated, the purpose being that the EVP presence is supposed to harness that and utilize that to produce its sound. But it's actually more of a distraction. I don't think it's necessary for an EVP.
Some people like to use it. We personally don't prefer it.
Boys, we have a ghost in the machine.
A ghost in the machine.
And
Well,
I'm not kidding.
that happens sometimes when you least expect it.
That it does.
It'll work at home and work for a demonstration. All of a sudden it'll stop.
Well, we do want, you know, we're the only ones that use this studio that have technical glitches like this.
Much like in the course of an investigation, how batteries and flashlights and recorders will fail inexplicably, and then once you're outside of the setting, they'll tend to
Yes,
regenerate.
batteries tend to drain during a paranormal investigation, but it's true. Whenever we're discussing something of a paranormal nature, you have to expect the unexpected. You never know what's going to happen, but...
Well, Keith, can you tell me something about your experiences with EVP? I mean, we have some experiences in common with those, but...
Believe me, we have many EVPs, and we can always come back to EVPs because we have many, many examples, and we're getting more all the time. They're not that uncommon, actually.
Do you feel this is a spirit reaching out, trying to imprint a message in the audio recording device, trying to get its message through, or do you think it's trying to speak to the investigators?
Or do you think it's the subconscious imprinting what it wants onto the tape or into the file of the digital recorder?
That's a good point, too.
How could it do that? I don't know.
Personally, I do think it's something outside of ourselves. I think it is a spirit manifestation using the recording to communicate with us. You know, we've come this far, we're this advanced, it's going to take advantage of it.
Yes.
Let's try the scream.
All right, let's try the screen. Get the screen
Let's
back.
hold that
Good.
thought. Keep our fingers crossed.
I can scream.
Yay!
Very good. Play that once more, Sandra. Very good.
Yeah, it's a very interesting EVP, but I thought it was even more interesting that I've never had that happen with this laptop. That was weird.
Expect the unexpected.
Really?
It just sounds like a
Your
soul
credit,
in
you got it back.
utter despair
I
and
do my
hopelessness.
best.
Yeah.
Let's do the Beatrice one.
Okay, I think you better set that one up.
All right, Carl, why don't you set the Beatrice
Well,
up?
Beatrice has actually turned out to be the name of a missing person. It was a case in Brooklyn, New York we had been called in to investigate, and a lot of things were happening in this house, a lot of phenomena, by the way, of course. Phenomena is the plural. Phenomenon is an isolated
A lot was happening.
incident. A lot was happening there. And
By the way, Carl is our terminology specialist. if you ever need a definition of terms, he's the guy to see.
Thank you, yes. I like words. So we were in the kitchen. We had just interviewed the clients, and we were conversing about the case. That's why you'll hear a lot of background chatter, but clearly a male voice comes through and says, Beatrice. When we gave our findings to the clients, they didn't know anything about Beatrice. That name had no relevance to them. Until one of the ladies who had grown up in that house called her mother out of state, and her mother said, how did you know about that name? And she asked, what does Beatrice mean anything? Who told you about that? Who's been talking to you? It turned out that Beatrice was the name of a woman who was last seen in that house and disappeared under very questionable circumstances. To put it short, that's the basic of the basic outline of the Beatrice phenomenon.
So this is actually a spirit voice identifying, or at least calling upon the name of a...
What seems to be a disembodied voice mentioning the name of a missing person, somebody who was actually filed as a missing person, and her name was Beatrice.
Mm-hmm.
See if we can bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to isolate the chatter in the background.
Right,
from
well,
Very
that-
chatty clients there
Yeah.
in Brooklyn.
Well, that was during the initial interview, and that's a good point where oftentimes it won't be while we're asking questions, it will be during the initial interview or sometime when we don't expect it, where these voices will actually come through.
Apparently this entity wanted to get its message through.
Right, yeah.
And managed to.
Actually mentioning somebody from a past generation, which this generation living in that house had no idea who it was. Never heard of Beatrice.
Now,
I think that's pretty amazing.
it's not Beatrice talking to us, it's this unidentified masculine voice.
Right, but actually mentioning somebody from a past generation, I think that's pretty amazing.
To me it is, yeah. It reaffirmed my faith in EVPs, that seems to be something genuine to it.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, it's another EVP. If you could bring that up, Sandra, from when we're doing the interview at a client's home, and you could, it was during the initial interview, and we happened to be commenting on the new decor that they had been doing in their apartment. And something commented along with us.
Yes, very sarcastically, I might add.
There's something different, remodeling. But I that's the only major thing we've done. Yeah, no, you would put that wall back up. Yeah, the major thing is done. Yeah.
Amazing stuff, that's what it says. Amazing stuff. Would you play that once more, please?
There's something different, remodeling. But that's the only major thing we've done. Yeah, no, you would put that wall back up. Yeah, the major thing is done.
Joined right in with us.
Did the spirit
I
like
like
the
the
new?
remodeling too.
Did they like the new decor, or did they respond to the feng shui there?
I think that it's just being sarcastic, but
It's interesting how these spirit voices tend to manifest personalities at times. They can be sarcastic.
Well, the one in Brooklyn, you dubbed that wise guy.
Wise
because
guy.
We had no
because
name
he-
for him, but
because several of the EVPs demonstrate a sense of humor, a degree of sarcasm.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
seem
to me, it's just so amazing to speculate that a mind that's not generated by a physical brain actually maintains a sense of humor or any personality at all.
Now, there's an EVP that is not uncommon for us to get. Spirit, as opposed to telling us, come on in, you're welcome to be here, what do we usually get?
Get out.
Yeah, that's
Leave,
not uncommon.
go.
I mean, very much a cliche, but we do get that.
Not
Get
too
out.
many, come in, you're welcome.
Right,
Mostly,
right. you know.
get out.
Yeah, they don't seem to want us there.
And that's pretty universal too. I've noticed, speaking to other organizations, group members, that's it's so very common. It's not just us.
Right,
They
right.
don't. It's not just they're not just telling us to get out. They're telling everybody.
Okay. How about the one from the Lighthouse Inn recently? We were at a convention there.
Excuse me.
We're in haunted room number 14.
Okay, yes. This we picked up during a convention that we did at the Lighthouse Inn in Connecticut. We're doing lectures there for a conference. After the lectures were completed, we were invited to investigate on the second floor. There's a particular room on the second floor where I guess a little girl has been seen. She's been seen running up and down the hall. And I guess, you know, we're basically looking for her, either to get photographic evidence or audio evidence of her spirit. There were so many investigators in the room at the time, in this bedroom, that I decided to go into the bathroom that was adjacent to the bedroom and see if I could conduct a little EVP session of my own, and which is what I did. I didn't think that I had gotten anything, but I went back and rejoined the group in the bedroom, and we listened to some of our audio, and it turns out I did get an EVP just as I was crossing the threshold from the bedroom into the bathroom. And the interesting thing about it was that later on we had a psychic come in who had been doing readings for the guests at the conference.
Yeah.
And she had not been told about the EVP. She felt at that particular spot, the threshold between the bedroom and the bathroom, that there was some sort of portal.
No.
She said she felt spirits moving back and forth.
Yeah, well, let's hear that.
And this is what I recorded at that particular spot.
Is there anyone here?
And that's John Zaffis speaking in the background.
Yeah, right.
A well-known investigator.
Very interesting that we do that Get Out, but we get that a lot.
The interesting thing about that one is that there's a lot of echo to it. I thought
Yeah,
that
there
was
is.
very interesting.
Well, this has been a fascinating topic, and I think we could come back and do a whole show devoted to EVPs again, because it's such a fascinating topic.
I think we should plan on that, yeah.
Yeah. In closing, Sandra?
Well, as always, we'd like you to know that we at New England Anomalies Research are available to research local alleged hauntings or assist those of you that may be experiencing unexplained phenomena in your home or place of business. We'd also like to hear from you if you have a show suggestion or if you would like to be a guest on Ghosts or N.E.A.R. So give us a shout at ghostsor.near@inbox.com. We'll believe you.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you indeed.
God bless.
Good night.